All right, folks, it's time to begin our media availability regarding investment in education. Minister, please proceed.
Thank you, Paul, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to join you today to talk about investments in education for the upcoming school year. I would like to acknowledge that we here today in Brandon are on Treaty 2 lands. And here in Manitoba, of course, we reside on Treaties 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lands, which are the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, Dene peoples, and of course, the homeland of the Métis Nation. Before we begin, I want to thank all teachers, school staff, school leaders, school divisions, parents, and caregivers for all they do for the students right here in Manitoba. School divisions have told us that COVID-19, inflation, and other costs have increased their financial pressures and burdens. This has been taken into consideration for this year's public school funding announcement. Today, our government is announcing $120 million increase to public school funding for the 2022-23 school year. This announcement means that Manitoba has the second highest spending per student in Canada at $15,434, right after New Brunswick at $15,486. We are maintaining this position nationally while we continue to invest right here for Manitoba students. The increase in annual funding includes an increase of $18 million for public schools, $2.2 million for independent schools, and a $23.2 million increase to the property tax offset grant. In addition, one-time funding of $77 million will be provided to address incremental wage and other cost pressures. This incremental funding is based on feedback from school divisions on their anticipated incremental costs over and above regular annual increases in funding. These increases will ensure that school divisions have the resources they need to help students succeed, regardless of where they live, their backgrounds, or their individual circumstances. Our government also continues to support Manitobans during this challenging time by reducing the tax burden for ratepayers. This year, we are again asking school divisions to freeze education property taxes. In return, the increase to the property tax offset grant will ensure school divisions do not lose out on revenue that they would have raised by increasing property taxes by 2%. While these financial pressures faced by school divisions are ongoing, we're only announcing one-time funding this year. A new education funding model is being developed in consultation with school divisions for the 2022-2023 school year, and base funding will be adjusted in 2023-24 according to the new funding model. Manitoba is committed to investing in education with the funding adjusted based on enrollment increases and accounting for COVID-19 related impacts. We will continue to consult with school divisions, school staff, parents, and students to hear what is working and what we need to do to support them as we move forward to continuously improve and strengthen the education system. Building on the $63 million contributed in 2021-2022, our government will continue to assess needs related to the pandemic response and will provide additional safe schools funding as required. Today's announcement builds on other recent investments to strengthen Manitoba's education system with a focus on continuous improvement. This includes additional one-time funding of $80 million for incremental operating costs in public school divisions in 2021-2022, which has just been given this past January 2022. Investments in a new pilot program will support engagement with elders and knowledge keepers in schools to promote the inclusion of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit histories, culture, traditional values, contemporary lifestyles, and traditional knowledge in the provincial curricula. We invested more than $1 million in additional funding for mental health supports, including mental health supports for the education workforce, the French translation of materials, peer programming training for educators, and further professional development for educators and leaders that is trauma-informed and culturally relevant to address the effects of long-term trauma caused by the pandemic. And we invested $260 million in capital investments to build new schools and renovate others. Preparing children for the future requires a modern education system that teaches the skills they need for whatever path they choose in the future. We will continue to consult with school divisions, parents, and students to hear what is working and what we need to do in order to support them. As the new Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning, I look forward to the opportunity to directly connect with teachers, staff, early childhood educators, and administrators in the upcoming weeks to chart a path forward and to build on our current successes. I would like to thank Brandon School Division for hosting us this morning for this wonderful announcement. Thank you, merci, Megwitch, and we'll take some questions.
Thank you, Minister. A reminder to our reporters on this session, you will have one preliminary and one follow-up question. Up first this morning from the Winnipeg Sun, Ryan.
No, oh, okay, we're good now. Just in reference to the 15,000 or so per student, I believe those numbers are, I guess, just looking for some clarity on that. The numbers were a bit older. Are you saying the province is going to maintain that 15,000, or are you going to maintain still being second in the country when it comes to funding per student?
Thanks. Thanks, Ryan, for the question. And the 15,000 is based on StatsCan numbers, and that is from a couple of years ago, and that's basically the 18-19, and that's what that's our most current data. And so yes, we're going to continue to try to be one of the leaders in the country in regards to funding per pupil ratio.
Okay, thanks. And could you expand a bit more on the pilot program you mentioned with working with Indigenous elders, and what might that exactly look like?
So the pilot program for Indigenous and elders and that, it was definitely, we announced this earlier on. Minister Cullen announced it, and basically a little bit more news is going to be coming within the next few weeks to a couple months here to elaborate a little bit more, not only on the pilot project, but some additional good work we've been doing with that project.
From CBC Radio Canada, Emil.
Still about that pilot program, I was wondering, are we expecting to, so when are we expecting for it to start exactly? Do you have any idea yet?
So as far as the funding project starting, if I can, I'm going to turn it over to, I'm joined today also, and I should have introduced her a little bit earlier, but my Deputy Minister, Dana Rudy. So I'm going to turn it over to Dana for a quick answer on that one.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we previously announced $275,000 for the pilot program for elders and knowledge keepers across 33 different school divisions. Those pilots have begun in some instances, and others will be beginning in February and March. And then we'll look to the results of the pilot projects to determine what additional funding may be required as we consider further expansions.
All right, thank you. And do you have an exact number of schools in which that program has already started?
Yeah, just for correction, my apologies. It was 33 schools across 11 school divisions.
Thank you.
From CBC Manitoba, Ian.
Good morning, Minister. We've boosted education funding here by 1.34%, but inflation is approaching 5%, which this obviously then isn't enough to make up for that. I mean, what else is being done to address inflation? Thanks,
Ian, for the question, and I do believe that today is a good funding announcement, we're looking at the increase of about $120 million, which is a combination of course, our public school funding, our property tax offset grant, and then, of course, the in regards to the education property tax, which has been frozen so that we can increase that, but then also the one-time $77 million to to basically help out with some of those cost measures and different challenges with various different things in regards to wage increments and that have been already negotiated. And actually the percentage is actually considerably more than 1.34, Ian.
Okay. Last year, enrollment fluctuations based on the pandemic were not, I guess, that was not taken into effect with the funding that was announced. This year, are we taking that into account? Does decreases in enrollment result in less funding?
So, Ian, thanks for that question on enrollment. Absolutely, we've seen a dip in enrollment due to COVID, but we have compensated and made adjustments so that school divisions were not penalized due to those enrollment numbers. But we definitely did see a drop in enrollment, and we're hoping that within the next maybe even school year that those numbers will start to come back up.
From CTV Winnipeg, Michelle.
I'm just wondering about funding for school ventilation. Is that specifically under this money, or is that separate? And would you commit to upgrading the ventilation in schools that need it and put state-of-the-art ventilation in the new schools that are built?
So thanks, Michelle. In regards to adjustments and various things that we're doing with various different capital, that money is not within this amount of money. That's separate. We've been working with school divisions and our partners, and of course with the Minister of Labor and Government Services, working on that more technical side with the ventilation. So that those dollars and cents, I believe, are getting out to different school divisions for different capital improvements on that.
I just wanted to ask again about the funding per pupil. You said you're going to commit to try to keep that. Why not just commit to keeping it?
So, Michelle, so the clarity question, you're asking me to commit to us remaining at the highest level per pupil ratio of dollars to students. That's definitely where we're going to try to keep it in the top within the country of our wonderful country of Canada here. And also, that we're working on we're working with our education stakeholders to also expand and improve upon our already successes within education. So.
From the Winnipeg Free Press, Maggie.
Good morning, Minister. I'm wondering if Ian earlier talked about the 1.34% increase, and you mentioned that it's actually much higher than that. Do you have a figure for what the percentage increase is here compared to last year?
Thanks, Maggie. And actually, when we start to talk about various percentages in that, it does vary per school division, and I believe that information is going to be public to school divisions after this morning's announcement as well. So the increase is considerably more. Back in 2020, and I know that you'll remember this, back in 2020, we made a commitment to increase funding to education by $1.6 billion in 2020, and that means on average roughly $400 million a year. And I'm happy to say, and I'm hoping I'm not letting the cat out of the bag on this one, but it's looking like we're going to actually exceed that, and that's over and above the funding that we've been giving to education over the years.
One of the very main goals and tasks of school boards for a very long time in this province has been setting those property education tax increases for the second year now, we're seeing that school boards don't have the ability to do that. Will there be a point of having school boards in the province, in your view, then in the future, if this key duty is no longer part of their mandate?
So that's a great question, Maggie, and and I think I can read the tea leaves on this one, and basically say to you that I think we've spent a considerable amount of time listening and out there speaking to various different education stakeholders, whether it's school division, trustees, superintendents, staff, students, parents, absolutely all stakeholders, and they were pretty loud and clear that trustees are here to remain, and that's the way we're proceeding.
From Global News, Rosanna.
Hi there. There is a lingering sentiment among parents of feeling left in the dark with the COVID cases, and among teachers feeling disrespected. How are you addressing that and turning a page in your new role?
Well, Rosanna, thank you very much for the question. And you know, as you know, I mean, I taught school. I was in the school system for 17 years as an educator. I'm an educator myself, and I have still absolutely many friends and contacts that are all within the education system all over this great province of ours, Northeast, South, and West. And you know what? It's been a tough couple of years, and it's been a tough couple of years not only for teachers, staff, students, and parents, but it absolutely everybody, and it's frustrating. I do want to say that you know, becoming the new minister, I look forward to having those opportunities to have those conversations with not only the associations of stakeholders within, but also getting out and actually having those direct conversations with the individuals at the front lines. And again, that's not only teachers, but you know, we've got bus drivers, we've got school staff, parents, students on you know, trying to support them. And we do hear the frustration, we do hear the anxiety. I know that we have, as a government, have provided quite a bit of resources in regards to try to keep those anxieties down. But at the same time, we know that I personally cannot control how one person feels one way or another. So it's basically, you know, we just went through Bell Let's Talk Day a week ago, and you know what, the big thing is make sure that you've got some people that you can talk to, and I'm going to be one of those people that are open and able to listen and have these hard, difficult conversations moving forward.
Thank you. And given our child poverty rates here, do you think this funding is enough, or is it late, or are you envisioning an even better investment for the upcoming model?
So thanks for that follow-up question. And when we start to talk about poverty, we know that you know, our teachers, our staff, our administration, and everybody, I mean, they wear quite a few hats as it is, definitely when they're teaching school and dealing with students and parents and that within the education system. Poverty is more than just an education topic. It's absolutely a whole of government and a whole of provincial approach, basically. And so when we're moving forward, I know that you know, I'm on the Poverty Reduction Committee of Cabinet. You know, we've reduced poverty in the province by about 25%. Long way to go. I mean, we've had quite the deficit, so-called, on the poverty front. We're definitely making improvements and inroads, and you can't do that unless you're having those conversations with various community groups and stakeholders who are actually going through those challenges and trying to come up with solutions for those individuals.
From the Brandon Sun, Kyle.
Good morning, Minister, and welcome to Brandon. I was wondering actually about that. Is there a specific reason you're making this announcement in the Wheat City today? Are you meeting with division officials, or did you just figure this was a good place, a good venue to make this announcement?
Thanks, Kyle. It's as if you and I practiced this question ahead of time. Basically, the big question is, why are we announcing this in Brandon? Well, you know what? As the new education minister, and this is no disrespect to our great capital city of Winnipeg by any means, but when we talk about public education and school funding, this is absolutely a provincial announcement. And I thought, why not take it to our second largest city in Manitoba, to Brandon. And yes, I'm meeting with some administration and some board officials today. And this is not a one and done. We'll definitely be back in Brandon many times to come.
Okay, great. Thanks for the response. And my follow-up question is about the property tax freeze. I mentioned this to your deputy minister earlier, but I just wanted to kind of just go over it once again. Last year during the budget process, the freeze on property taxes was a big barrier in terms of balancing the budget for the Brandon School Division. Am I to understand that the one-time 77 million infusion, that's meant to offset that same difficulty for this division, other divisions, and will that temporary solution be replaced with a permanent one once the new funding formula is completed?
Thanks, Kyle. And and the 77 million one-time funding is there to try to offset, of course, some of the pressures and challenges in regards to contractual signing of wages and that, but then also some additional cost pressures. And due to the 2% freeze, we've made that adjustment so that they're that they are getting that tax freeze bump as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We have a few moments for a few more questions. Media, please proceed.
Minister, is this funding announcement, are the base funding figures based off of fall 2019 enrollment?
Thank you. So in regards to enrollments, again, due to and then I can turn it over to Deputy Minister right away if she has something to add. But basically, because the enrollments had dropped during COVID, we had made sure that we adjusted those numbers so that school divisions were not punished over basically things that were absolutely out of their control in regards to COVID. I mean, we're again looking at our assessed value as well was basically off the 2020 because we are moving towards a new funding model, and I wouldn't want to preempt those conversations and those collaborative opportunities with our education stakeholders on how that new funding model is going to be looking. And I'll turn it over to Deputy Minister Rudy if she has something to add.
Yeah, I'll just want to elaborate. So last year when we calculated our 21-22 funding announcement, we also adjusted for the impacts of COVID on enrollment. And so typically every year we look at the prior year to determine our future funding year. So for the 22-23 school year, it will be based on this September enrollment. I would say that the impacts of COVID are certainly being felt, but we did see a rebound in the number of enrollment this year compared to last. So we're still sitting less than 2019, but the formula really is adjusted based on Statistics Canada prior enrollment in previous years, and also the number of students that maybe have gone into homeschooling as well.
Sorry, I just want to follow up. Still the same question, Ben. It's 2019, right? We're using 2019 figures to come up with this year's number. Am I understanding that correctly?
So I can turn it back over to Deputy Minister Rudy, but in fact, those numbers that we're looking at, again, enrollment is definitely decreased, but again, the adjusted, Ian, for this school year, 22-23, we're actually looking at 2021 September numbers, but we're adjusting due to the impact of COVID on our enrollments, to make sure that the school divisions are not again punished for something absolutely out of their control, which is the COVID virus. Deputy Minister, do you have anything to add?
No, that's exactly right. And maybe I'll just elaborate that it's not one specific number, that the team looks at a variety of different factors to make sure that it is a good representation of what we would have anticipated enrollment to be, including most recent statistics data as well.
Deputy Minister, during the technical briefing, you mentioned that there's a single school division that is receiving decreased funding in comparison to this school year, and that would be, of course, not falling even further behind inflation. What is that single division that's receiving that fairly significant decrease this year?
So it's not a significant decrease, but I think those are outlined in the backgrounders. School divisions will be receiving their letters momentarily as well. So for this school year, Garden Valley School Division is seeing a slight reduction overall, but that's based on significant enrollment changes and other factors that would be into consideration. And we'll be working with our school division partners to better understand all financial impacts. And we certainly want to encourage school divisions to keep talking with the department to better understand how to plan and how we can move forward. And that doesn't include anything outside of the additional funding of the 77 million. So again, I just don't want to be focusing on one particular area. But when we look at the holistic numbers of this year's 120 million, all school divisions are seeing an increase.
Garden Valley, though, is the community or where the vaccination rates, or Garden Valley represents communities where the vaccination rate is lowest. Did we see a more significant enrollment drop there than anywhere else?
I don't have that information available to me at this point in time, but and again, the formula that we created tried to offset that as well. But we're happy to do any follow-up to media as well on that topic.
Time for a couple more questions.
Minister, do you have any updates about when we'll know more or when you'll know more about the task force that's looking into education funding? Have you seen any initial reports about their findings to date?
Thank you. Thanks for the question. I'm not sure who asked that, but it didn't really matter. But thank you very much for the question. And yes, we'll be getting some additional information out to media and to Manitobans when we get it and go over and definitely get it out to everybody.
Can I just have a point of
Minister?
Yeah, thank you. I just want a point of clarification on the decrease to, I think it was Maggie's question. I just want to reiterate that the percentage change for the school divisions was based on our funding of schools announcement and the property tax offset grant. But when we look holistically at the overall numbers, there's no school division that is receiving a reduction this year. So when we include the 77 million as part of that. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thanks for that, Deputy Minister.
Final question.
The 80 million and 77 million figures that are going towards teacher settlements, those I believe surpass the 120 million estimate from the Manitoba School Boards Association about how much the back pay is going to cost to cover those expenses related to Bill 28. Will those figures, is that all the province is going to dole out to address that back pay? Because I know that, of course, support staff also have settlements and that number's much greater than 120.
So over the last, thank you, thanks for that question. Over the last 2 years, those are one-time settlement payments that have gone out. So 80 million this past January to try to offset some of those cost pressures, not only with wages, but also anything additional that school divisions, and then the one-time 77, which is going to be coming up for 22-23. These are significant increases to those dollars. The 77 million is actually triple the amount that has been given out in past. So this is a significant increase to within that realm. And I'll turn it over to Deputy Minister if she has anything to add to that.
No, I don't think so, unless you have a follow-up to that.
All right, everyone. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Deputy. This concludes our Zoom session.
Thank you, everybody.